This is Open to Work, honest conversations about looking for work, getting work, and what to do when there is no work. Today, my guest is Julian Morgans, who has a really interesting take on the current state of the pitch. Julian, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, Ben. Thanks for having me.
We worked together when I was developing some challenges for you on a concept you were pitching around town. You've since developed a bit of an interesting take on the pitch, and I just want you to share it with us up front because I think this is such an interesting conversation to have, particularly right now.
Okay. Well, then I guess I'll just start. I'll start with the thesis. The thesis is don't pitch. Pitching is a waste of time 100% of the time. And it's just every second that you spend developing that pitch, crafting that Canva little Bible together, like choosing the right font, showing your friends, getting feedback, 100% of that is a waste of time. Your idea is going nowhere, I promise you.
You made a LinkedIn post about this a while ago. It went absolutely gangbusters. And I guess just how did you come to this realization first? Like, why do you think this?
Yeah, I mean, I realize this could be construed as a negative hot take, and I'll talk to that in a minute. But so first of all, you said that we met while working on a pitch together, and I have to say, for this was a formative experience for me personally. Just a quick little bit of background: I was at Vice Media for a long time. I was there, like head of content there for about 10 years. In Australia, it was my job to choose stories. And I think I got a good sense of what works and what doesn't. For me, that was my sort of like arrogance there was kind of validated to some degree when my first ever pitch got picked up by Netflix and became Byron Baes. So I was like, cool. Okay, I can do this. But then what happened was about 3 years in the wilderness, and nothing I ever pitched got taken up. And it didn't matter like who I pitched it with or like how hard my business partner and I worked on it or like what it was, just nothing ever moved. And that coincided for me in reading a lot of stuff at the same time about how the industry's changed. This was a time, 2020, like 21, 22, 23, where Paramount and all of these other companies that aren't Netflix, Disney, for example, they all jumped on this bandwagon to roll out streaming. Streaming had turned out to be a bit of like financially a bit of a dead end. Like obviously Netflix is making money again, but a few of them are really struggling. There was the writer's strike, the actor's strike, like Hollywood was just in turmoil. And I was looking at like personally here in Australia, my little like trickle down version of that was that every single meeting I ever went to, they'd be like, this is great. We're going to totally give you a call. And then nothing would ever happen. And I just realized that I will get incredibly old and cynical and bitter if I persist with this business model, with this technique of trying to get stuff up. It's a dead end. It's not going to work for me. So then I started making my own stuff. I had a podcast that I'd pitched around. No one wanted it. We made it. It like within a month or two, it had gone to number one on the Australian charts. And I was like, wow, that's like, turns out I've still got it. Like my ideas are still good, I think. So it was just a moment of like, I'm just going to do this. Like, I'm never going to talk to any executive ever again. Cause like all due respect, executives, but like no one knows anything. So I'm just going to make things that I believe in. And that's been going really well for me and I'm making money. So that's my experience, and that's what's led me to have this rather radical opinion.
This is such an interesting take, mate, because I think at this particular current state in the industry, when many of us are maybe underemployed or fully not employed, our go-to default is to, open that bottom drawer and bring out those 10 ideas that we've had over the past couple of decades, polish them off and start pitching them around town. I know I have been doing this, and you're absolutely right, getting absolutely nowhere. So it's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, but what would you say to those people who have those 10 ideas sitting on their desk? They're trudging around to meetings, they're putting in front of financiers or network EPs and all the rest of it and getting knocked back. What would be your first piece of advice to them?
All right, so imagine there is a gun to your head and you have 90 days to make one of those ideas. And if you don't get one of those ideas made, you die. Like imagine if the stakes were that high. I'm sure you'd be able to choose one of them and you'd think, all right, we could probably do this as a YouTube series, or we could get this on TikTok, divided into like 20 sort of like little mini episodes. And I'm sure you could round up some friends and you could like distill your essential idea into a sort of format that's going to work for a tiny budget that you can crank out. And I would say just go and get it online. Go and make it. Go and finish it. I believe in the power of luck and serendipity. And I you know, you sort of hear this phrase all the time in like Silicon Valley. People talk about expanding your sort of luck surface area. And I think when you get something out into the world, things start to happen. People see it. Maybe it'll go viral. Maybe it not. It kind of doesn't matter. Like maybe someone will see it who is attracted to work with you, and you'll develop a new partnership. And the next thing that you work will be the one. You know, just something will happen. Whereas I guarantee, if you keep shopping your 10 ideas around, nothing will happen. And worse than nothing, I think pitching a concept that goes nowhere is like this horrible thing where it actually takes something away from you. Every failed meeting just like eats away like 2% of your optimism. So you do a whole bunch of meetings, none of them go anywhere, and you just end up feeling deflated and hopeless and nihilistic. Pitching hurts when it doesn't work. So preserve your sort of psychic energy and just go and make it yourself.
All right, so I'm going to push back on a little thing just for the sake of debate.
Please.
When you were going around and pitching, say luck, all comes together and you do get a bit of development funding or you get a full commission or whatever it is, you get all the money up front or part of the money up front, and it allows you to fully realize your dream, but it also allows you to live life, not just bringing people on board the project and making it reality. It allows you to pay the bills and all the rest of it. Is it realistic for many of us to just start making content? It requires time and sometimes your own financial upfront, and then just kind of putting it on the internet and seeing what happens. Is that realistic?
I just think that old-fashioned idea where someone's going to give you a bunch of money is unrealistic in 2025. I mean, I've kind of got this flowchart in my head. This is the flowchart for like the old model of success. It's like you've got an idea. Great. The flowchart used to be go pitch it to the right people. They'll pick it up. That used to be kind of like the way this would work. These days, the flowchart looks like you've got an idea. Okay, first question. Are you Chris Hemsworth? If the answer is no, give up. Don't bother. If the answer is yes, go for it. Chris, well done. Congratulations on being you. Otherwise, for the rest of us, like it's not going to happen. And I think like where my mind jumps to the sort of like the heart of being an artist here. I don't think you have a choice about being an artist either. Like if you are a creatively minded person, then that is your lot in life, and you have to do this. So you will find a way to do this. If you truly think that you can give up and go and get a job in like accounts receivables, then good luck to you. Power to you. But I couldn't give up. So I had no choice but to just like reconfigure my life and to make it work. And look, I'll share it with you. It's not easy. I literally got divorced because my wife and I at the time weren't seeing eye to eye on my sort of like doctrine for like, I've got to make art. I don't want to get a regular job. Okay, if all financial stability is not the thing I can offer, then like we got to break up. And like maybe that's oversharing, but I kind of honestly think that if you want to make it in this creative economy and in this economy, then you got to be that ruthless.
Sure. I mean, you just shared then, but I mean, what was the path to kind of get to the point where you are now, where you do have this very successful podcast called What It Was Like? Which you're right, it's top charting on Apple Podcasts. I mean, how did you go from that's it, I'm going to stop pitching to I'm just going to start making this thing and getting it out there?
Well, we just made it. We literally just made it. I've got this microphone. I bought a microphone off Amazon, $400. I started, I've made podcasts before, so I know what to do. But I think the other thing that was that I chose the idea with the lightest lift. I chose this format to put all my eggs in the basket because I knew it wasn't going to require much post-production. It was just a format where I just talk to people. But I thought my little twist on it was sufficient to get it some traction. And thank God I was right. Honestly, $400 microphone, crappy blanket that I found like in my upstairs linen closet. I'm now in a couple of like pretty high stakes conversations about like developing the IP into TV series in the States. And like there's a couple of projects that look like they might come off just on the power of the stories that I've managed to find with like zero investment.
So when somebody's watching this and they think, okay, along similar lines, I better just start something. You kind of touched on this before, Julian, but it's kind of like, do I start making my top tier idea, or do I make the low hanging fruit, the one that I can just get out the door within the next 90 days?
The one that you can get out the door, because I think you need to be realistic. I think human beings, we all need to be realistic about what you can actually achieve. We all think we can achieve like up here, but you can't. You can't. You can achieve like down here at best, off your own bat particularly. I think every project has a sort of use by date where like fatigue and general inertia will catch up on you, and you just need to build that into your expectation of how it'll go. So like 90 days, like if I don't have something done in 90 days, I know that I lose interest. That's just me. And I think we should just all collectively accept that. But the second thing I'll say is like, you need to choose your noisiest project. Like that was one of my learnings from Byron Baes. This was one of my learnings from working at Vice. Like Vice was a empire that sort of rose off the back of noise. Like it was always, their whole business model was just like sex and drugs and like cults and like just noisy stuff. And I took from that experience, like if you say what your idea is to a few friends, and if they don't sort of scoff and like kind of laugh a bit, then maybe you should choose a different idea. Like you kind of need to like surprise people. Like, oh, that's kind of funny. Yeah, like okay, you're gonna make that, and you're like, sure. Yeah, I'm gonna make that. I think often your top tier idea is like a bit soft, or it's like a sort of beautiful sort of drama piece or something. Something that's like, it's not noisy. You gotta stick in with something noisy first. That's so. Look, be realistic about what you can achieve off your own bat, but also be realistic about how much people are going to care.
All right, Julian. So what's the moral of the story? What's the big takeaway for anybody watching this today?
My big takeaway is that you can have the career you want. You can make the sort of shows you want to make. Like it is possible. And I truly believe that. I think you're on the right path. I think I'm on the right path, but I just truly think take it into your own hands. We live at an amazing time with this godlike technology where you can make your own thing and put it on a platform. You don't need the gatekeepers. And I think we're at this sort of inflection point where we've got all of this technology that like just destroys the need for the gatekeepers, and yet emotionally we're still sort of latched onto this notion of like we got to get this past the gatekeepers. Like it's time for our sort of internal sense of like the business model to catch up with what's possible. Like TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, like you can just make your thing and put it out there, and you can be the steering your own ship to whatever glorious place you want it to go. And I find that really empowering.
All right, mate, time for a plug. Your podcast, What It Was Like, very successful. If anybody hasn't heard it, where can they find it and what's it about?
Thank you, Ben. The show's, What It Was Like. And the idea is that every week I speak to someone who's lived through a truly wild, extreme event. And I ask them what it was like.
Amazing. All right, well, Julian, thanks so much for your time today. Amazing advice. This has been a great conversation. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks so much.
Thanks to my guest, Julian Morgans. Thanks to lowkii Productions for helping me put all of this together. And thanks to you for watching. See you next time.